My name is David Jett. I'm pastor at Crossgates Baptist Church, and if you've been walking with me the last couple of days, we've been looking and journeying with Jesus during this last week of his earthly life here. And again, I want to remind you that 30% of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are focused on this week. And so this is a huge week, not only as we celebrate this week, but it's a huge week in the heart of God. Earlier, we talked yesterday about the triumphal entry of Jesus, and then I did one of the two major events that take place on Monday of this week. The first one I did earlier was Jesus cleansing the temple. Now I want to go to a second important event, in fact, one of my favorite stories in understanding the heartbeat of God and what God desires from our life. And it's the story of Jesus cursing the fig tree. Now, it's found, like the other one that I read earlier, it's found in Matthew chapter 21. It's found in Mark chapter 11 and Luke chapter 19. If you want to go look them up and read them, that'd be great. But I'm going to read the story as it unfolds in Mark chapter 11. It begins in verses 12 and goes down through verse 14 and then picks back up again in verse 20 and then follows through down to verse 25. So let me just read this, and then we'll come back and I want to share some things with you from the story. It says this: On the following day, when they came from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing in the distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to see if he could find anything on it. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. And he said to it, and rather he speaks to the fig tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him. And then down to verse 20. It says, as they passed by in the morning, they saw the fig tree withered away to its roots. And Peter remembered and said to him, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree that you cursed has withered." And Jesus answered them, "Have faith in God. Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, 'Be taken up and thrown into the sea,' and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also, who is in heaven, may forgive you your trespasses." You know, as we come to this story, there's a lot of ideas about this story, and I think there is in some way a reference to the Israelites and the Jews not fulfilling everything that God intended. But I believe there's a deeper story here, and it's because of what we read here in Mark and the way Mark records it. And so as we go through it, I'm going to ask four basic questions real quick I want us to look at. First of all, what is Jesus inspecting? Well, we see here he's inspecting a fig tree, but it really represents our lives. He sees a fig tree in bloom, and he walks up to it because he's hungry. And the next thing is, what's he expecting when he gets there? Well, that's a key question. We have to understand the time frame because we know when this event took place. It took place during this time of the year, during the March-April time in where is when Passover is. And in Jerusalem, the fig tree, it's in bloom during this time of year, but there are no figs on it because it hadn't yet started producing its fruit. In fact, figs don't produce fruit in Jerusalem. It doesn't produce a fruit until June. Now, Jesus knew that. As a matter of fact, if some of you question that, you can go to Mark 13 and see where he gives an illustration about figs later on. But he knew there were not going to be any figs on that tree. So what was he expecting? And that's a key for us to see, because when Jesus looks at our lives, he knows that we live in a fallen world. He knows that we live as sinners saved by grace. But if you've given your life to Christ, living in this time frame, what is he looking for? I believe the Bible is saying here that he's looking for out-of-season fruit. He's looking for the fruit of God's kingdom to be produced through our lives, even though we're not yet there. I believe that's what he's looking for. As a matter of fact, whenever Jesus told us how to pray, he said, "Pray this way, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name." And then he told us to pray like this: "Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is being done in heaven." In other words, he's saying he wants us to pray, Father in heaven, I know that in heaven the figs are always there. I want you to bring the figs of your presence and of your kingdom into this time whenever it's not the season yet for all the move and the fullness of your kingdom. That's what God's expecting in each of our lives. Whenever he comes to this, what's he rejecting? Well, he's rejecting man-made works. Many times we fall into that trap. We say, well, you know what, I'm just going to do the best I can. But that's not what Jesus wants. I mean, he saw a fig tree that had pretty leaves, but it didn't have fruit. And in our lives, he's not so much interested in the pretty leaves of religion. He wants to peer down in and find the fruit of his kingdom. That's what he's looking for. In our own lives, God is looking for each one of us to be producing the fruit of his kingdom. What is the fruit of his kingdom? Well, in Galatians chapter 5, the Bible tells us that the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. It's the fruit of God's kingdom. That's why Jesus told us that he's the vine, we're the branches, that apart from him we can do nothing. He wants to produce fruit through our lives. It's the fruit of his kingdom. So today, as we think about Jesus cursing the fig tree, let's look at our own lives. And let's no longer live under the cursed old sinful nature, but instead, let's allow the new creation we are in Christ to release the fruit of God's kingdom so that the people around us may experience the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, all the fruit of the Spirit through our lives. I hope you have a blessed and wonderful day.